Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Sumit and I'm here with my new video in Mastering GraphQL API tutorial series. This is my second video in that tutorial. In my first video, I explained about, I gave an introduction about GraphQL and I gave a quick demonstration also. So if any one of you haven't subscribed my channel yet, please visit this URL. I share the link in the description below. Follow this URL and don't forget to like, subscribe in my YouTube channel in order to get more updates on GraphQL tutorials. So in today's session, I will be going to I will be going to tell you how do we set up the environment, test the GraphQL using Postman, and also I'll introduce a new tool called Altair Client. And this is not a promotional video for Altair Client, but this is basically Altair is a tool. It's an online tool, cloud tool, which will help you to design your GraphQL query and test your GraphQL query directly from the Altair client. So we'll be going to discuss all the aspects one step by step. So first of all, I will be going to show you how do we set up the environment and we'll be going to test it by using Post. And in order to do this, so the very first thing we required is a Salesforce developers account. And I'm pretty much sure that you already have got your Salesforce developers account. So those who haven't registered for the Salesforce developer account, kindly go and register over there. So once you have Salesforce developers account, so the next step is we would like to test it by using Postman. So we do not have to do any configuration in our Salesforce or in short, I just wanted to open developer console. In future, I will be going to show if you want to test the GraphQL, if you want to test any query from by using developer console, I'll open developer console and from the query editor, I can simply test my query, select ID, common name from account, and I execute this. And you can see I'm able to see the records. I'm able to view the records. That's a simple query. Now, the next is I would like to test the GraphQL queries by using Postman. And for this, first of all, I'll visit my Postman. I'll open postman.com. And I've already logged in into my Postman org and registered and logged in. So in order to use Postman, and what is the use of Postman? Postman is an online testing tool which helps you to test your APIs to Salesforce or any third-party applications. So I have prepared a detailed video on Postman. In that, I have explained that how do we test the REST, how do we test the REST request from Postman to Salesforce, and I will I'll drop the description again in the link below so that in the description below you can check that out. So I'll visit postman.com and here I am going to basically I created one GraphQL testing workspace. And in this testing workspace, the very first step I need to do is I need to create a connection. So initially, whenever we want to make an API call from either from Postman or from any tool to Salesforce, so the first thing we need to do is we need to create a connected app. And in my case, I have already created a connected app named as REST application. So I've already created a connected app as REST test app. So in order to create a new connected app, you can quickly click on new connected app here and you will be able to add a new connected app. So when you click on new connected app, you have to click on create a connected app, continue and provide all these details, connected app name, contact email. Then you have to enable this auth setting. Here you need to give the callback URL. So I'll give the callback URL as https localhost.com. And here I'll give full access to the data. And finally, when we click on save, it will redirect us to the next page where we can generate the secret, basically, where we can generate the consumer key and consumer secret key, which will help us to test or which will help us to make the request from Postman to Salesforce. So this we have already tested. So let me show you quickly if I want to do this, how can we do this? So let me open my REST application. This is my REST application. And let me view this application. That's my app. And if I edit my app, you can see the app name, the contact email, host setting, local host, and I give full access. And when I click save, here I'm getting an option here, manage consumer details. And when I click on manage consumer details, it will read it. It will send a verification on my mailbox. So I'll just check the verification code, and the verification code is 191822. So 191822. So I got my consumer key and consumer secret, and I will be using this consumer key and consumer secret to test the request from post. So I've already done that. So now I'll just enter this URL https login.salesforce.com/service/auth2 token. This is the URL you need to pass. This is the URL you need to pass. So let me just mention that URL somewhere here. And here I'm going to add it. This is the URL. So https login.salesforce.com service auth2 token. Grant type is equal to password and client ID. So the information you are looking for, you require client ID, client secret, consume username, and password. And the password will contain the password is a combination of username and security token. And how do we get the security token? In order to get the security token, you need to make a request from here by navigating to settings, and you can request reset your security token and request for a new security token. And once you do that, Salesforce will share the security token on the registered email, basically on this email ID. So I have already done this, and now I'm going to test it. So when I send this request, when I make a request, Salesforce validate this all the details and respond back as a 200 OK. And here I got the access token and instance URL. So this is my access token and this is my instance URL. Now, in order to validate, in order to make a GraphQL query, in order to run a GraphQL query from Postman to Salesforce, how are we going to do this? So basically in Salesforce, we have a collection, and in collection, basically when I go to collections, so here I got a collection called GraphQL connection, and I can test the query. I can make a UI request. So in order to make a GraphQL request, in order to make a query from Postman to Salesforce using GraphQL, this is the format we required. So basically here do we have to pass it? So no authorization, and in header we have to pass X chatter entity encoding. This will be the header we need to add, which we need to set to false. Parameters we don't have to pass, and in body we need to provide this query. I've already explained this query in in my previous video, that how this is a GraphQL query. But before we test this GraphQL query, you can see we have the endpoint and the version. So these two details we need to pass. So endpoint will be the instance URL. So I copy this instance URL from the one we have received, and I paste this endpoint here. So I just pass this endpoint here, and the version I just passed version as 62.0, and GraphQL. So we'll be using GraphQL. When we use REST operations, we always specify the S object name, or if you want to perform a query, if you want to run a query, we always use query. But if you want to perform an update so we have to write S object and then the methods. But here in GraphQL, we always use post method, and this will be always the URL. And in body, the body, I select the type as GraphQL, and I pass my GraphQL query. And when I run this query request, okay, I'm getting an option. I'm getting an error here called 401 on authorized. Reason is I need to pass here authorization, and in authorization, I'll go to authorization, and here we have bearer token, and that token I need to pass. So what's the token? This token I need to pass there. So I just pass this token here and send request. So you can see 200 OK, and my request processed successfully and it's fetching the data now. So this GraphQL query is going to fetch the accounts, their ID and name from the account object and display the results over here. So it will be going to display the result. You can see I'm able to see the result. So if I want, I can copy this and let me paste it somewhere in a notepad. See this, we are getting the accounts and their ID and name value. This is how we can test or we can run on test a GraphQL query from a Postman. But in order to make it more simplify, in order to make it more easier, especially the designing part, there is a tool called Altair tool and Altair.graphql.dev. You have to visit this URL and then you have to download and set it up. Or there is a Discover Altair GraphQL Cloud option is also there, and you can try it for free. What you have to do is you need to there's a free version, so you can try it for free. And when you say try it for free, it will redirect you to login. So you can log in with the Salesforce, as you can see. Or we can install the plugin for this Altair. If you scroll down, we can see the plugin. Let me just open this, scroll down, and when I scroll down, you can see we have the plugins. So these all are, so I can see the plugins and I see these are the plugins. I can see get Altair for the browser. So I just wanted to add an extension for the Altair in my browser, whether it's a Chrome or Windows or Firefox. So I'm going with the Chrome only. And you can see in my extensions, I'm getting the Altair GraphQL client. And when I click on Altair GraphQL client, it will open the Chrome extension and it opens successfully for me. This is the entire client for me. So let me close this. These all are my previous tasks, which I have done, previous jobs. How are we going to use this Altair in order to run and test a GraphQL query? So the very first step is so I click on add new and it will create a new window for us. So for the whatever query in this place, we have to write a query and here we can see our result. But before that, we have to authorize it. We have to authenticate it. And for authorization, I'll select the bearer token. And the best part is only we have to specify the bearer token. And this bearer token is the same one which we retrieved from here. So this Altair, basically, it will be depend on this token, bearer token for the authentication. And one more thing you have to do here, one more thing you have to do here. Once you set the authorization type as bearer token and this set the bearer token, don't forget to click on the docs and click on reload. So what it will do, it will reload the documents and it will add the functions related to the objects, especially for the mutations, especially for the objects. And the best part is, this Altair will start giving it will help in writing our GraphQL query quickly by fetching the object name and the fields within that object. So for that, it is necessary that we click on this reload option. So I'll just wait this. I'll wait here. Now you can see the document has loaded successfully. And as I mentioned in my previous session that in GraphQL, we have two phases. First is the query one and second is the mutation. Query is basically it helps in querying the data. If you want to query the data, we'll say GraphQL. We'll be using query. And mutation is basically this is a beta entry point for create, update, and delete operations to the schema. So using this mutation or using GraphQL mutation functionality, we will be able to perform the DML operations on an object. Except creating an object, we can perform insert, create, and update and do this operation. Now it's time to write a query. So how are we going to write a GraphQL query? Let's check it out. So in order to write a GraphQL query, we will be going to start from, so what's the step? The very first step we need to do is we need to start with a keyword called query. So I start with query and you can see as soon as you start typing, it will give you the self-descriptive tag. So I just enter query. I'll just, let's say, get account query. Now, what is this get account query? This get account query is the name of the query. You can consider this the way we used to define the function. For example, in developer console, if I am creating a new Apex class, let's say test query Apex class, and within this class we used to create a function. So I write, when we say public static void, let's say get account record. So in same manner, this is your function name. So in same manner, in Altair, this will be the query name. Then we would like to query the data. So it belongs to UI API, and this is the user interface API family. So I enter UI API. This is UI API. Within this UI API, we need to specify a key, or you can press Control Space. It will give you the help. It will give you the option. Now, what all options we can use here? We can do aggregation. So in order to do the aggregations, if we want to get the object info, we can use object info. In order to query, we can use query, or we can, if we want to add the related list info, we can use this one. So these all are the four tags we can use here, four types. But I just want to make a query right now. So I am selecting query here, and this is to record, this is to query a record from an object. So query bracket. Now, next is, we need to specify the object name, from which object we want to fetch the data. So I want to fetch the data from let's say account. So I type here account. This is the object name, and as you can see, I'm getting account CSV. So because not in every instance you will get account CSV, or not in every instance you will get position object, because these are my custom objects which belongs to my instance. So if I'll go to object manager, you can see these all are my custom objects which I have already implemented in my org. So that's why I had suggested you to refresh, to click on reload option in order to get the in order to get a list of existing objects, all custom objects, and as well as standard objects. So I want to fetch the data from account. So I type here account. And as you can see, as I entered, it give me a list of all the, or it give me a list. See, this is a self query get generated automatically, but obviously this is pretty big. We are not very much clear about this. So I'll undo this, and account, it says fill all fields. If I say automatically fill in the fields here, so I don't want to fill all the fields. So therefore, what I'm going to do, I'll just start a bracket. Then we have to write here edges, account edges. Within edges, we have to specify here nodes. Now there are two options. I'll just say nodes bracket. Now inside node, we need to specify the field names. We need to give the field names. So I want to fetch ID, that is the account ID. I want name. Let's say I want phone, and annual revenue. Now, let me test this code. When I click on send request, it will throw me an error message. I'm getting a validation error here. And the reason why I'm getting a validation here, because except the ID within an object, any object, whether it's a standard or custom object, except the ID, with all other fields, whether it's a text field, or it's a pick list field, or it's a or any other type of field, it is the field should be of any data type. We always have to specify value. So when I start a bracket and enter, you can see we are getting three information: display value, label, and value. So value is the actual value in that field, label is the label, and display value, if we are, see this display value, basically it's a, if display value we mainly use with the currency fields where we have the currency symbols. So for the name, I'm using value. For the phone also, I'm using value, but for the annual revenue, I will be going to add both value as well as display value. And now when I send request, you can see it get executed successfully. The query get executed, and I'm able to get the record ID. This is the name, value, and you can see phone. Also, if you just look at the annual revenue, we got the value without currency symbol. And when I say display value in a proper currency format. So as I mentioned, that's why I mentioned that whenever you will be using a currency field, you want to display value from a currency, you always prefer to use display value from a currency field. For rest of the fields, you can use value. or if you want to display their labels, you can. So this is how we can set up an environment, and how do we test the GraphQL using Postman and Altair client. So keep practicing on this, keep working with this. That's all for the day. That's all in this video. In the next video, we'll be going to talk about few more functionalities. We'll see how do we add filters on this, or how do we apply filters in GraphQL queries. We'll be going to see in later sessions, in later videos, we're going to talk about how do we apply the aggregations and other functionalities also. So that we'll be going to discuss in our coming videos, coming to. So uh, keep watching the videos, keep watching the channel, and do subscribe the channel if you haven't subscribed yet. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.